It's no secret that we love our Arabian horses and those that have come into our lives as a result. From the everyday amateur to the professional trainer, AHT Talks is here to chat about the latest happenings, get to know some of our favorite individuals, and answer some of the questions we're all eager to know. Now, here's our host, Laura Ames.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to my podcast tonight. I'm so honored to have Lori Foster with us, and I'd like to give a special shout out to our sponsors, Jarvis Insurance, Oak Ridge Arabians, Great On Arabians, Coltrane, and Cedar Ridge Arabians. Lori, thank you so much for taking the time tonight to be with us. How is everything going for you during this time?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for asking me. I was surprised and honored that you reached out to me. It was quite a nice surprise. So far, I mean, it's crazy, of course, but I will say the good thing is, even though I'm still able to work, I've cut back on my work, and so I've actually been able to spend more time with the barn and with my mom, and getting some things done and getting ready for show season.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, tonight, everyone, we're going to just sort of Lori's had a long history in the horse business. Her mom and her do this together. And I think Lori is a unique situation because she does it both with a public training facility, but she also does a lot of horses on her own, which is an inspiration for so many. So, Lori, let's start out. How did you get involved with the Arabian horses?
Well, I came by it, I would say, genetically. My grandmother, my mom, they started with Arabians in the mid-60s, just before I was born. And then I just eased right into it as we came along. I started off, my mom had roadster ponies, and she gave me one of her little Shetland roadster ponies, learned how to ride on. And then I kind of just went forward from there and started on the Arabs that they had. And as they say, we just kept going forward in the industry, and we've never looked back.
If you think about your earliest memory, if it's at home riding, in a show ring, what is the first thing that probably comes to your mind?
Well, I remember trying to teach the little roadster pony, who was a little Pinto Shetland. His name was Jimmy Pony, and official name was Peabody's Pied Piper. I remember trying to teach him how to canter. And that was always a trick when they're the roadster ponies, because boy, could they trot fast. And then another memory I have of showing is, and I've shared this picture on social media, and I believe actually in the Times, I showed and walked, or in lead line, on a horse called Edmore Alfor, and he was a reserve national champion futurity stallion in the 60s. And I showed in lead line, and back then you actually had to trot in post. And I took third place, and I remember that because Stella May, who was my mom's first half Arabian, and they'd sold her, she beat me, and I was bitter for a long time about that. So it was, she took first with her rider, and I took third, but I still recall that, and just that level of competition. I was like, I think I just ate it up right from the get-go.
Yeah. Now, what does it mean to you? Because you and your mom do this together, and I see you guys obviously at the horse shows a lot together. You said you've been together the last couple months at the barn riding together. What does it mean to do this with your mom? Because I'm a little bit in the same boat. My mom doesn't show, but she still attends all the shows with me and does that. What does it mean to do it with your mom, and how do you guys feed off from each other?
Well, I think it's an amazing experience, and I think as a mother-daughter, as you can attest to, it's made us even stronger than many relationships are, and it's just having the competition level and being able to support each other and that kind of thing has made it very I guess bonding. I mean, we know we can finish each other's sentences, and I don't really I go to shows. Sometimes she doesn't come to a show, but I always miss when she's not there. And I'm sure you know that feeling too. It's like,
yeah.
you just like having them on the rail. And, sometimes at nationals, that 8 a.m. class can be tough. And I'm always like, but they get there, it's like they're always there to support me, and I'm always there to support her. And I think the hardest thing for me is to watch her show, because I just want her to do so well, because she works so hard. And, the fact that she's done this for such a long period of time and is still enthused about it, I just think it's just an amazing thing that we get to share it together. And the Arabian horse, I mean, I know everybody loves their horses, but as you know, the Arabian horse does have a special personality that I think just kind of draws you in. And I think that keeps us so bonded.
Yeah, no. So you do, like we said earlier, you do a lot of your horses at home as well as you have some out in training. How do you determine which horses you do at home, which horses you send out in training, or is there a rhyme or reason to that?
Well, I will say that my young horses always go to training. I don't feel that I am confident enough to break a horse from the beginning, a baby, and I feel that that's the trainer's expertise, is getting those babies started and getting them confident under saddle and that kind of thing. So I always send my babies out, and some of them will come home when they're 5, and I'll just work them from there depending on their personalities, and some of them will stay in training. It's not always the easy ones I bring home. I have my gray purebred English park horse, who is probably the trickiest horse I've ever ridden. And I brought him home because I had to learn how to ride him. He has some quirks, and it's like riding him once every month or once every 2 months just wasn't getting the job done for me. And so I thought, I'm going to just bring him home. And the first year I showed him, he top 10 in both of his classes at US, which was very exciting because the year before we didn't even make it in one of our classes. So that to me was very rewarding, but it also, he's just a horse that takes a little bit more time. And not to say that trainers can't take the time, but sometimes they honestly don't have the time to take the time. And I get that. And then other horses are specialty horses, and, you know, I feel that I can maintain them fairly easily. You know, the country or the show hack horses and the costume horses and that kind of thing. And it kind of just depends on the horse and the circumstance. I mean, Norman Rockwell, he's a great horse, and I could probably keep him home, but Jessica Clinton would probably kill me. So, you know, I have to take the trainer's feelings into consideration too. You know,
yeah.
So
now, when you keep them at home, so what is like your daily or weekly routine with them, and your time commitment that you have to make to it?
Routine is, I usually work my horses 4 or 5 days a week. And I don't work them on Mondays and Wednesdays. I work long hours those days. My horses do get an opportunity to go out every day. Even if I'm not working them, they go out in the pasture or out in the arena for at least an hour. They do, you know, of course, have bell boots and splint boots on, but I feel that they have a little bit of freedom and get to be horses that way, and keeps them very happy. And it's almost, you know, trainers have the ability of putting on a hot walker many times, and I don't have one, so that's kind of their opportunity to get that exercise and that stretching that they, you know, that they do get on a hot walker. They get to go out and have some freedom. And so, but I basically 4 to 5 days a week they get ridden or long line.
Do you have somebody at home that helps with the daily chores with them, or do you do all that too yourself?
No, I have a very, I used to do all of the feedings in the morning. My mom actually loves to feed in the morning. It gets her up and gets her moving, and she says she feels better when she feeds. So when she's here in the wintertime, she feeds in the morning. But I do have girls, a bunch of good girls that come in, feed, do stalls, and help with turnouts. And, you know, I do feed, I will say I do feed the horses every single night, and I go down for night check every night, just to make sure everybody's safe.
Yeah. Let's talk about your first national championship, because I remember it being you won the half air. Was the half air of English your first national championship? You'd been top 10 a gazillion amount of times, right?
Yes, I used to say I was the Susan Lucci of the Arabian horse world. I had been top 10. I think I lost track of how many times. And I finally won national champion with mandolin and the 40 and over English, which was fantastic and so exciting. And then I also in the same show turned around and was national champion in the Costume Open with Ability Bay, who was a horse that I trained myself. And so that was even more rewarding to be able to do that. And it was just, I feel like it broke my streak. And since then, I knock on wood, I've had a pretty good run. And it just, I don't know if it just like gave me a little better confidence in the ring. You know, I got a little, not that top 10s, I love them. They were great. I mean, I love every single top 10 I still take, but it was like, I think I felt so much pressure to finally win one. And it was like, oh, I finally did it.
Taking that weight off, yeah.
Yeah.
is there a particular show horse or moment that maybe stands above the rest?
You know, I love so many of my horses, and back, in 2005, 2006, a long time ago, I had a horse called CD Nightlife, and he was with you guys when Kevin was there, and he was just a great horse, and he was pretty, and he was sharp, and I could work him myself, and I really, that was a great horse. Back in the day, I also had a great hunter named Sparkle Plenty, and she won a ton, and she was just a really good horse. And those are two horses that I think gave me a little bit more confidence to work horses more on my own and still compete with them at the national level. But, then I have Mr. Big, my purebred that I bought for $850 when he was 3 years old. And he's won, he has this fan club. His nickname was Pip, and they yell Pip, Pip, hooray. And he's got his own fan club, and he will never leave my barn. And he's just a big old goofball, and he gets away with murder. And, I have to laugh because I have a tendency now, I have a lot of Boscafires, and I know sometimes people find them to be they can be a little bit, I don't want to say difficult, but they can be a little challenging, I've heard people say, and I think I own 6 of them. So it's, and I just had a new Boscafire baby, so out in California. So I'm excited for that one to come along. But I just, I've had so many great horses over the years. I've just been so lucky.
Yeah. Well, this year is not the norm probably for anybody with horse shows, because obviously we're all chomping on the bit to hopefully get to one sometime soon. But typically, how many shows do you attend a year? And do you do any on your own, or do you usually go with Vicki and Jesse when you do it, or how does that go?
I usually show about 6 shows a year. I like the NIAC show in Springfield, Illinois, and I do that one with my amateur acres horses, which is what we've decided we're calling us. And so we'll take my own horses there, and then I do the Buckeye, and then Region 14 is with Vicki and my own, and then we'll go to the Ohio Fall Show. It's a nice little prep show. It's a 2-day show, usually over Labor Day weekend. I only have to take 1 day off work. And then National Show Horse Finals, of course, and then U.S. Nationals. And so I kind of do 2 shows on my own, and then 4 shows with Vicki and crew and my at-home horses. And I found it works pretty well. I was actually looking forward to this year. I'd gotten a bunch of other like-minded amateurs, and we were going to stable together, and I'd gotten new stall curtains and chairs.
I saw that, yeah.
And, we were all excited. We were going to the Buckeye together, and yeah, so, but it's okay. We'll figure it out. If it's not this year, we'll do it next year.
Next year. Well, let's talk about, because I always say this at a show, I think you probably at certain shows show in more classes at that show than I probably do in 2 years. So first off, what's the most classes you ever showed? I'm sure you know that, but what's the most classes you ever showed in 1 day?
I honestly don't know that answer. I know it's a lot. Especially because I show the specialty classes. I know sometimes, I probably have shown 10 or 11 classes in a day, I would say. I've never really counted. I do count my nationals classes before I go to see how many classes we could potentially have, of course, if we make all of our cuts, or, if the cuts run and that kind of thing. But I don't know if I have a firm answer to that. I know that Cindy Clinton, she will let me, I'll be like, Cindy, you're putting these classes back to back. You're going to have tack holds for me. And, and I feel bad sometimes, but I'm like, it is what it is. I have a costume horse and a show hack horse, and I don't do side saddle anymore. That's way too painful. But, I do the specialty classes, which does make it a little bit hard to do a schedule sometimes. But I'm very fast at a tack change at this point.
Well, I think you are, yes. So at nationals, you said you do count your classes, like on average, how many classes, if you made all your cuts and they held all the sections, how many times would you show?
About 25 to 30. And that was, the last few years, I keep saying I'm scaling back, and I still have been showing 8 to 9 horses. And, and the thing is it's funny because people always are like, well, it is a lot of horses, but I train several of myself, so it does cut costs that way. And I do show my mom's 2 horses in that jackpot class. So it does even it out a little bit. And so I'm not, I think that makes it a little less crazy, but it's still a little crazy. And I will say on Thursday night at Nationals, they do try to kill me. They put the purebred English back to back with the purebred costume back to back with a half Arab show hack. And I show all 3 of those classes. And so that's been, we did an AH Times Live, I think 2 years ago, changing from one to the costume. And, I made it through it without swearing, so it's excellent.
Yeah. Your bun at a horse show, like say Nationals, is your hair in a bun more than it is down?
It is. And this past year, I was able to get away with it a little bit. But in 2018, I did sleep in my bun 3 nights because I had, just the way the schedule worked, I had the last class at night and either the first or second class in the morning. And I mean, I made my national halter debut with a bun because then I had a country class later that morning. So I was like, I'm not even going to bother. I'm just going to sleep in this thing. And so I've learned very well to sleep on my side and not, and it's shellacked down. And I mean, but oh, my head hurts. It hurts.
I was going to say at the end of the show, it's got to feel like a special treat to have your hair down and out of the bun.
The last 2 years on Friday at Nationals, I haven't had any classes. And it's like, wash that hair and scrub all that hairspray out.
Spray out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about away from the horses. Do you have some activities that you enjoy doing?
Yeah. No, I do. We do have a home in Sedona, and I enjoy going there and hiking, and just the scenery there is just amazing. It's a very calming experience. It's one of the only places I go that I feel that I don't have to literally do anything if I don't want to. And then my parents live on a lake in New York, so of course I love going back there and boating and that kind of thing. And, we try to take a vacation every year, most of the time tropical, but sometimes we just count Sedona as our vacation. It depends on my work and that kind of thing. And I would be, very remiss if I didn't say that I have to spend significant amount of time with Hughes Oldham because, that's a highlight of my life.
So you talk about, I know your significant other, he plays a huge part at the horse shows as well, because I think everybody eats a couple of his meals along the way as well, right?
Oh yeah, no, I think Paul is probably more valuable to BHTC than I am as a client at this point. I mean, they count on him for at least 1, if not 2 meals a day, especially at the bigger shows. And so and he does a great job. And it keeps him busy because, being a horse show husband can be a little bit boring sometimes. I mean, where you and I can sit and watch every class all day long, he will only really come up to the ring and watch when I show, or if we have, one of Laura or Dee Dee or Izzy or, something like that is showing, he'll come up and watch then. But he has a tendency, he doesn't find it as exciting as I do.
So does he do like his meal prep? Because there's like a meal and a drink of the day. Does he sort of orchestrate all of that, or how does that?
Yes, he does. I came up with the drink of the day last year, though. We had people, kind of get involved with that. But he meal plans before we go. The GFS that we have locally, it's like a Costco or whatever. He goes there, he buys, he is great at finding stuff on sale. It's hilarious. I mean, he's like, I found, what, and I'm like, I don't know how much meat costs. And he's like, oh, this is a really good deal on a tenderloin. I'm like, great. And our freezer, even my girls at my office, we have a freezer in the basement, and they're like, Paul has so much food in there. What's it for? And I'm like, that's his horse show stock. It's like he buys it when he finds it on sale. And, we plan the menus, and of course we have to run it by Jesse and Vicky. And, plan the meals out. And so we basically have a menu for the whole week.
So is he the main cook at home then too? Does he like to cook?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I would live on pasta and salad, and he actually, makes up some protein. So it's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would everyone be shocked? One thing they'd be shocked to know about Lori?
That is such a hard question. Because I'm pretty honest, and I'm pretty much out there all the time, and I say what I'm thinking most of the time, not to everyone's delight. And but like, I think something that people wouldn't know about me, and it has to do with horses, is my very first National Top 10 award was in Hunter Over Fences. I took a Gigi DeVos daughter that I showed country pleasure, had shown country pleasure in costume and side saddle and show hack. And I was boarding at a hunter barn, and I was like, let's see if she'll jump. I mean, she'd done everything else. She loved it. And that was my very first National Top 10 was in Hunter Over Fences.
Wow.
So I just think, I don't know if it's shocking, but it's a different fact. And I don't think that there's anything like that crazy that is shocking about me. I do horses and I work, you know?
Yeah. Let's talk about your livelihood. You're a chiropractor, and how did that come about?
Well, I have several uncles that are chiropractors, and I always knew that I wanted to go into the medical field. But I just didn't really know what. And I think once I got into college and I became more experienced with everything, I just thought chiropractic could always help me. And I was like, this is a really good fit for me. And my uncles actually tried to talk me out of it because it's a physical job. Like their advice to me, I remember, was just try to find a rich guy and marry him. And I'm like, that didn't really go so well for me. And, you know, so I became a chiropractor, and it's an excellent fit for me. I opened my practice. I celebrated my 25-year anniversary just this past February of my own practice. And I really enjoy the job. I hate the insurance aspect of it, of course, as any medical professional does. It's not amazing, but I love getting people better. I love helping people, and it's a really good fit for me because I get to work on the whole body. So, I mean, everybody thinks chiropractors are just for backs. I treat just as much plantar fasciitis and shoulder pain, and, you know, and I do acupuncture, which is a really neat avenue to do. And so I just find it's a really good fit for me. You know, personally, I don't take any prescriptions. I try to eat fairly well. You know, I try to stay healthy. So it's just a really good fit for me. And I've been lucky enough that in my county, I am the only female and I am the only acupuncturist. So I think it's made my practice as successful as it's been. So like I said, I've just been very, very fortunate.
Now, do you have anybody that works with you, or do you do the whole?
I do have an associate, but she works very limited. I will be looking for an associate that works more in the future as I look into cutting back. One of the things I've noticed with the COVID is we've cut our office hours back significantly. I am essential, so I still have been working, but I usually work 6 days a week, and I'm only working 3 days a week. And I kind of like it. And, you know, but at the same time, I have people requesting to come in on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I know that I would need to get somebody to pick up those hours, but I have to say I've enjoyed it a little bit.
Had the downtime.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about something that you brought up. You talked about social media and how you're known to put your surveys out there. And I think that you're a good voice for amateurs and all amateurs. Is there anything coming up or concerns you have going into 2020, or things that you feel you maybe played a role in helping get changed? Or,
you know, I don't know if I ever play a role in anything. I know that I probably do, you know, annoy some people, and that's fine. I just really am adamant about, or passionate about, I don't know what the right word is, about amateurs. We are the backbone of this industry, and I think sometimes that gets lost in the whole shuffle of such a big industry. And if we don't have an amateur base, we're not going to have anything in the future. And one of my most recent problems, or I don't know, things that I took on was the sweepstakes class, the jackpot class. And I still feel that class is an exclusionary class. And I know I talk to a lot of amateurs, and a lot of amateurs message me, and people that I don't know message me, and they ask me questions, and they tell me their concerns. And I just feel, I understand the sweepstakes committee is doing a good job. I mean, they're trying to breathe life into a program that was dying, but there has to be some flexibility in that. And I put forth, in my opinion, suggestions that were very doable. Hold the class, like you do a junior horse class and reward the sweepstakes horses, yet at the same time allow everybody to compete in the class. And in that respect, you would also be able to take the money that non-sweepstakes horses, if say they pinned champion or reserve or top 10 or whatever, take that money and you could roll it back into the sweepstakes program, instead of doling it out. And, and I know that committee worked very hard, and I've talked to members of that committee, and we're just never going to see eye to eye on that. And they have put it in place right now that, you can't add another class to U.S. Nationals for 10 years. That's a really long time. I mean, if you think of what's happened in the last 10 years in this industry, and every person, and it's not, the whole industry isn't about the nationals, that's for sure. I mean, right now we're talking about, going back and showing at the local level. I mean, doing anything to have a show. But you have to be able to allow these people that are spending $10,000 to come to a national show to show in more than one class. They like to show their horses. They want to show their horses. And you've now made it impossible. If they don't have a sweepstakes horse, and one of my friends, that she has a non-sweepstakes horse, and it was for sale. And you know what? She couldn't get it sold. And that's a shame. She was ready to move up to another horse, and she can't afford to have two. So she's got nothing, and it's like, so she's still showing her horse and, doing that thing, but she's not competing at the national level because she can't take that horse in two classes. And I think that is something that is very important, to be inclusive in this industry, not exclusive. I mean, we really have to have this be way more inclusive than it is. And that is my soapbox on that. And like I said, I know it's not going to change, but I still have my strong feelings on that.
Well, I actually think in the amateur division, I think those jackpot classes they're the best class of the show, because it's all age divisions showing against each other. And I've always been one that has wanted a grand championship, so you could really leave the show saying you were the best, whatever division you were showing in the amateur. But that hasn't happened. But I think this is the closest thing we have to right. That, so.
And I have to say, I love those classes. I mean, I compete in them every single year. And the thing is I think people sometimes think when I get up on my little soapboxes, it's a personal agenda, and it's not. All of my horses are sweepstakes nominated. I mean, it's not about me. It's about the amateurs that come, that talk about it and that come to me. And I think those classes are a blast. And they're so much fun, and it's great having them on, Saturday night and on those big nights, and they have so much energy. But why not let everybody go in them? Can you imagine how much more fun it would be if everybody was allowed to go in it? And and that's what the sweepstakes committee came back, and they're like, look how exciting they are. And I said, I'm not denying they're exciting, but wouldn't they be exciting if everybody was allowed to put their horses in them? I mean, it would still just be an exciting class, because you have the age groups intermingled, like you said. I mean, anybody can go in it. And that's what I think it's about, is making it inclusive, not exclusive. And personally love the class. I mean, I won a lot of money in the class, but that doesn't mean that if somebody came in with a non-sweepstakes horse and they beat me, I'm not going to be like, oh, well, that wasn't fair. I mean, I'd be like, okay, they beat me fair and square. It's what competition is about. I mean, having the best horse win. So
yeah, I think for a few years they for sure should have allowed that, because if your horse, as breeders, there really was no reason to put your horse in sweepstakes for a lot of years. There was no benefit, but now there's a benefit. And I wish they probably would have had a little grace period in there. I guess they say they gave their grace period because of they allowing you to go back and pay the, additional fee to put your horse in sweepstakes. But
right. And that's what my petition that I did a couple of years ago actually had a provision saying, if your horse was born after those classes were instituted, then then you knew about it, so you should have nominated your horse. But it still isn't fair to the amateurs that buy these horses. I mean, if they would leave it open and let amateurs that buy these non-sweepstakes horses nominate them, that would make it a little bit more fair, and it would add more money to the program. I mean, like they did last year, instead of limiting it until October. I mean, not every horse got nominated, and that's not the amateur's fault that they didn't get nominated if they own the horse at the time. If they own the horse at the time and they didn't nominate it, then shame on them. But going forward, there's still horses out there that are not nominated.
Yeah.
So
one question I didn't have down on my list, but in talking with you, it just makes me want to bring it up because we talked about your first national championship. We talked about all the years you did it. I look at one part of our industry that, the last few years, the numbers have been declining, and that's the youth. The youth nationals has gotten smaller. The youth classes in general have been a little bit smaller. Parents get frustrated, and I've been showing for a long time like you, and my response to parents is, what event do you go compete at a national level that you can go do it in a year or so? And so I guess because people look up to you, what advice would you give to a parent that's just starting out in going through the whole process and not thinking at the end of the first year that you should be going to nationals and showing maybe?
Well, speaking from my personal experience, I started showing, we didn't have youth nationals. I didn't compete at the national level until I was older because that's not what we did. We showed locally, we supported A shows, we supported our regional shows, but we didn't start showing at the national level until we felt that we had the horses and the experience to do so. I spent a lot of time looking up to people like you and other people that showed at the national level, saying, I want to be that person. I don't think that any first year, second year, third year rider is ready to compete at the nationals, of course, but there's, with the youth nationals, it gives a little bit more variability, but this is a the first year you play soccer, you don't go to the state championships, it's a learning curve, and you have to earn the right to go. You have to pay your dues almost, and it's not instant gratification. Horses are a big learning curve, and you're lucky enough that your parents can get you a horse that's ready to go there. That's great, but you know what, if you're not, and you have to work your way up, I think that makes you even more proud of the fact that you've been able to do it. And I tell parents all the time, I think horses are the best money spent. Yes, can it be slightly exorbitant? Absolutely, especially when you get up to the national level. But you can't have a teenager more respectful than having the responsibility to take care of a horse. And my niece, who is she's not from my mom's side of the family, she's from my dad's side of the family, not raised in horses at all. No one on that side of the family had ever even touched a horse, I don't think. She's 12 years old, and since she was 3 years old, she's been addicted to horses. And my sister doesn't get it because we weren't raised together, so she doesn't understand the monetary and the commitment to it. And now my niece is 12. She's qualified for pony finals. She does hunter jumper. She's qualified for pony finals, and she's addicted. And my sister is doing everything she can to support this hobby because she sees what passion it brings. My sister's a big time lacrosse player and lacrosse coach. And she sees, is she a little disappointed about that? Yes, that, my niece doesn't play that. But at the same time, she just sees the passion behind the horses and how much responsibility it teaches them and how goal-oriented these kids become, because now she never thought that her pony would be good enough for pony nationals. And guess what? She qualified this year, and she is freaking out because she looks at the USEF website every day to see if they've canceled pony finals yet. And it just shows how goal-oriented and committed these can be, kids can be to the horses. And I also find that all the horse kids that I know, first of all, they're so good around adults. They learn so many life skills being around the horses because they have to be around adults and they have to listen, because horses can hurt you. They can step on you. They can, anything can go wrong. And you have to learn so much respect. And that's what I tell my parents that want to have kids getting into it. I said, it's going to be the best decision you ever make. It might cost you a little bit, but it is going to be the best decision as far as having your child grow up that you can make.
Yeah.
I don't know if I went off topic on that, but I'm sorry. I was not ready for that one.
Okay, I got another topic I'm going to throw at you that wasn't on my notes I sent you. Select rider class. thoughts on that?
You know,
Layout of it?
I think the select rider class, I have to say at first, I was against it, but it's such a big class at the Nationals, and it brings people in and it gives them a goal and it gives them something to work towards. But I think that select rider class has to be truly for the select rider. And, like this year, Dee Dee Templeton rode one of my horses in the select class. She's watched Izzy's show for how many years? And she's never, she hasn't shown herself, I don't even know, 10, 12, 13 years. She did it, and she was so excited to go into that ring and actually show. And I think that is who the select rider class is for, is, either people that didn't really get a chance to learn how to ride when they were younger, or maybe they went to college and, their parents didn't have the money to pay, but they got into horses because it was their passion and they stayed with it. And they might have shown 4-H back in the day, but the select rider class is meant for people that are truly select. And I'm fine if it's still in the national schedule, because it does give people an opportunity to go and show. But like I said, I don't think people that have been national champion in another division should show select in an opposite, in a separate division. I do not know how to ride Western. I tried it one time. It terrified me. I mean, I was just like, where's their head? It's too slow. I didn't, and then here this year you go and it's not your forte either, and you went and you won the maturity.
Yeah, but I was in a Bozell. Let's put that clear that I was not. It might be a different deal when I'm going to ride them.
I might be able to do, but and it's like but that was the right way to do it, and that's all I really have to say about select.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. In closing, I know you've been actively involved with the Hollywood Toy Foundation and helping them with fundraising or doing events. Obviously, everything's a little question mark when a show's going to happen, not happen. You guys got anything on tap for 2020 that you're going to do?
Well, the Hollywood Toy Foundation, those girls are special to my heart, and they were with BHTC for a long time. And I had done a fundraiser at Region 14 for Terry Delbridge and the Distress Fund. And then the next year, these girls were looking for fundraiser ideas. I said, hey, let's talk to Cindy. Let's do 14. And we did the Trainers Challenge. And we've raised just under $100,000 at Region 14 doing our fundraisers, which has been amazing. And, this industry, as you know, with the Distress Fund and everything you've done, they're amazing at supporting their, their own. This year we had planned on doing the Equitation Challenge again, but I don't think that's going to happen at Region 14. We thought it would be fun, if the shows opened up, so many people loved it, and that will probably be happening if we're not allowed to have spectators, of course. But we are not giving it up. We're thinking maybe National Show Horse Finals, doing something. I mean, obviously U.S. Nationals is set aside for the Distress Fund, which I totally get. I mean, that's a fantastic organization, and they've done, it's a wonderful work. But the Hollywood Toy Foundation does great work too with promoting kids getting to go to U.S. National or youth nationals, and and giving them scholarships, and kids that may not be able to otherwise afford to go to youth nationals. It's been a really, I mean, it's a great thing these girls came up with, and I'm just happy that I can help them raise some funds for it.
Sure. So MidSummer Nationals, will you be there showing this summer, or?
I am not sure. I had planned my summer vacation during that time. So luckily airlines are very good at refunding money right now. So I if I go, I would probably only take one, maybe two of my horses with Vicky. I would not take any of my horses on my own. It's too far for me to drive and take that much time off work. I think it's a good concept. The negativity on Facebook on this from some people has been a little disturbing to me. I mean, we're all—
I would agree. I think at this point, any show, it's
right.
like, if it's not for you, don't go.
Yeah, and I'm kind of just like, let's just all be happy and have fun together. And, in the fact that they're thinking that this Youth Nationals will have the same exact feel as it have every year, I don't think is reasonable expectations. And, you know, we have to just be realist in this. And I don't think that this is going to take away from the youth at all. I really don't see that happening. I think we all know how Youth Nationals goes. I've only been there once, but I've heard about it enough that I know, you know, it is about the kids. And I don't think anybody wants to take that away from the kids. And, you know, I know at Region 14, I love having the youth there. We have a blast with them. It's nice to be able to see them show. I would like to see them show at Youth Nationals and, you know, and see how well they do and see how they rise up and, you know, and bring their best game. You know, they are the future of our industry. And, you know, we have to encourage them, but what better way to encourage them than having way more adults watching them than just their parents? I mean, having the rest of, you know, the industry there supporting them. I mean, I just think that is a much better way to look at it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, obviously it is their show, and this year we're under way different circumstances. And I think for anybody, if we can get to a show, it's a win-win for anybody, you know, at this point. But as a youth, I think, you know, you're going to probably have some youth riders that are going to be like, this is taking away from our glory. But I also think you're going to have others that are going to be like, oh my gosh, we can finally showcase, you know, to, you know, maybe it's not a bigger audience, but they're going to be focused in on it probably. So the classes are amazing. So
yeah, no, the youth riders, I mean, they're unbelievable, and the horses are great, and they do a great job of presenting them. And you know, if we go, I'm excited to see how it goes out. And I certainly, I mean, I think the hard part for so many people is the fact that there isn't a schedule out yet. And I understand the committee has their hands way full, and, you know, it's going to take, I mean, there's a lot of logistics you have to come out with, and, you know, in adding only 3 days of the show, you know, they're going to have to fit a lot in. But I think what people have to realize too is there probably aren't going to be as many cuts this year. I don't think as many people are going to be able, you know, youth even are going to be able to go to the show. I mean, that's just my feeling on this. You know, the Canadian people won't be able to come down. You know, and there are some families that, you know, financially with everything that's going on may not be able to afford youth. So I think rather than bringing negativity into it, we should just look forward to it with, you know, an open mind and just see what is going to happen with it. You know, I mean, I know the show committee is trying to do the best they can for all involved, and it's no easy task.
No. Well, thank you for tonight, Lori. We really appreciated having you on, and I look forward to seeing you at a show hopefully very, very soon.
I know, hopefully very soon. And thank you so much for asking me. And I'm sorry if I went off and tangented, you know.
No, that's what it's all about.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Lori. Have a good night.
You too.